It was late at night on Earth. The sky was quiet. But inside the great observatory, the computers beeped again and again. Scientists looked at the screens with wide eyes. They had seen many signals before. But this one was different. It was not a random noise. Not a mistake. It was clear, powerful, and full of strange patterns. The leader of the team whispered, "This is not natural. Someone is speaking to us." The whole room fell silent. Everyone listened, and slowly the words became clear. The signal was not from Earth, it was from the stars, from a distant empire humans had never seen. And the message was shocking. It said that an alien princess had chosen a human groom. The scientists stared at each other. No one wanted to believe. But the words repeated again and again. "This message is for the humans of Earth. The Princess of Lumeria has chosen one of you as her groom." The scientists sent the message to world leaders. And within hours the news spread everywhere. Governments held secret meetings. Generals shouted about danger. Diplomats argued about peace. The people of Earth were confused. Some laughed, some were afraid, some dreamed of glory. Why would an alien princess choose a human? Why not her own kind? Why not another empire? The mystery created fear, but also deep curiosity. Everyone wanted to know the truth, and above all, everyone asked the same question: who would be chosen? The signal continued for days, repeating the same words, "Only a human can be my groom." It was not a request, not a question, it was a command full of royal pride. The princess did not explain why. She did not say who. She only declared her choice. Leaders of the world worried about war. What if they refused? What if they agreed? The alien empire was far more advanced. Their ships larger, their weapons beyond imagination. No human army could stand against them, so the world had to listen. In the streets, people gathered around giant screens, watching the news. Some imagined riches, some feared slavery. Some shouted that Earth would be ruled by aliens. Religious leaders called it a sign from heaven. Scientists called it history's greatest chance. Children pointed to the stars and said, "Maybe she will choose me." But in every home, behind every laugh, there was also fear. At night, the skies above Earth glowed. Strange lights moved far beyond the atmosphere. Powerful ships circled silently, reminding humans that the aliens were near. No attack came, no threat was spoken, but the message was clear. The choice had already been made. The princess would not wait forever. The leaders of Earth argued for weeks, but finally they agreed. They would allow one man to meet the princess, one man to carry the weight of humanity. The search began, secret and fast. Armies and scientists tested men in silence. They looked for strength, for intelligence, but also for courage and heart. The princess had given no conditions, only that he must be human. Millions of men wanted to volunteer, but only one would be chosen. Rumors spread that the decision was already made, that the princess had seen him in her dreams. No one knew the truth, only that the world was holding its breath. Then one night, the sky above Earth changed again. A great shadow appeared, larger than any mountain. A ship from another world, its light shone across oceans and deserts. And people screamed in both fear and wonder. The message came once more. But this time it was not through radio waves. It was a voice that echoed inside every human mind. Calm and beautiful. "I have chosen, he is among you, and I will come for him." The scientists fell to their knees. The generals froze and the people shouted in shock. The alien ship lowered closer, silent and terrifying, yet full of grace. It did not fire a weapon, it did not show anger, only patience. The whole planet knew that the moment had come. Who was the man? Why had she chosen him? What fate waited for Earth? The answer was near. But the mystery only grew deeper. In one small corner of Earth, far from the powerful cities, a man sat alone, looking at the stars with quiet eyes he did not know yet. But his life was about to change forever, for he was the one the alien princess had chosen. And his journey, unknown to him, was only beginning. The world held its breath. The sky burned with alien light, and humanity stood at the edge of its strangest story. The princess had spoken, the choice was made, and nothing would ever be the same. The world was not the same anymore. The signal had shaken every nation, every home, every dream. Some called it a blessing, others called it a curse. But no one could deny that the alien princess had changed the destiny of Earth. The question on every lip was the same. Who was the chosen human? Governments argued in secret chambers. Scientists whispered in labs, and the people shouted in the streets. Billions of eyes waited for the answer. Billions of hearts beat faster with fear and hope. At first, the leaders tried to control the news. They told the people nothing. They pretended it was only research. But the alien ship above Earth was too large, too bright, too silent to ignore. Its shadow stretched across seas and cities, reminding everyone that the choice had already been made. The world demanded truth, and the leaders could not hide it anymore. The princess had chosen, but only she knew the name. So the search began, wide and desperate. Armies and scientists tested men in secret rooms. They measured their strength, their mind, their loyalty. But the princess had given no rules, no hint, only the command. Only a human, millions volunteered. Rich men, famous soldiers, great leaders. They all wanted the crown of destiny. But day after day, the tests failed. The signals stayed silent. And the ship above Earth did not move. In a small town far from the cities of power lived a man named Daniel. He was not rich, not powerful, not famous. He worked in an old repair shop fixing machines. He lived alone, his parents long gone. His days quiet and simple. He read old books at night. He walked under the stars. He dreamed of adventures he never thought would come. Daniel had no idea that his name was already whispered in the halls of power. Weeks passed, and the alien ship grew closer to Earth. People panicked, some prayed, some rioted. Some begged their leaders to give the princess her groom. The leaders grew desperate. They tried sending soldiers to the ship. But none were accepted. They sent scientists, doctors, even kings. But the ship stayed closed, and then one night, the voice came again, soft but powerful, reaching every human mind. You waste time. The one I chose is not among your generals. Not among your kings, he is Daniel. The world froze. The name echoed across every screen, every radio, every thought. People searched the name. And soon the world knew Daniel, a simple man from a small town. The leaders sent soldiers to bring him. News cameras followed, and the people watched with wide eyes. Some cheered, some laughed, some hated. How can he be worthy, they cried. But the ship above Earth glowed brighter, as if it was smiling, as if it already knew. Daniel sat in his small house when the soldiers came. They told him the truth, they showed him the message, and his heart stopped. He laughed at first. He thought it was a joke, but the look in their eyes told him it was real. Fear ran through him. He was only a mechanic, only a man who fixed broken machines. But destiny does not ask, it commands, and the alien princess had spoken his name. The journey to the capital was long. The world watched him leave his town. Crowds gathered on the roads. Some threw flowers, some threw stones. Some called him hero, some called him traitor. Some begged him not to go, but Daniel walked with calm steps, his mind storming inside. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a prisoner of fate. In secret rooms, the leaders begged him to represent humanity with pride. They dressed him in fine clothes, taught him how to bow, how to speak, how to smile. But he was still Daniel, the quiet man who loved stars more than cities. And deep inside, he wondered, why him? Why would a princess of another world choose someone like him? The answer hid behind the stars, waiting for him to come. Finally, the day came. The alien ship opened for the first time. Its doors shone like silver light. Its halls whispered with strange echoes. Daniel stepped forward, the world held its breath. Every camera watching, every heart racing. One step, then another, and soon the doors closed behind him. The earth grew silent. No one knew what would happen now. Inside the ship, Daniel felt weightless. The air smelled of flowers and storms. Strange lights floated in the walls. Strange sounds sang in the air. And in the silence he heard a voice. Soft, royal, filled with mystery. Welcome, Daniel, the princess said. Her words in his mind, her presence near. You are the one I chose, and soon you will learn why. Daniel's heart shook. His journey had begun. His life was no longer his own. The world outside waited in fear and wonder. And inside the ship, Daniel stepped into the unknown. The story of a human groom and an alien princess was only beginning, and the fate of two worlds now rested in the hands of one man. The ship carried Daniel away from Earth. The planet grew smaller and smaller until it was only a blue star behind him. He pressed his hand on the window, his heart heavy, knowing he might never see his home again. The silence inside the ship was strange, not empty but full of whispers and soft humming, as if the walls themselves were alive. Machines moved without touch. Lights followed his steps. The air felt cleaner than anything he had ever breathed. Daniel realized he was no longer in the world of humans. He was in a place shaped by minds far beyond his own. For days, the ship traveled faster than light. Through tunnels of glowing energy, Daniel watched stars bend, colors twist, and whole galaxies pass by like sparks in the dark. He could not sleep. Every second reminded him he was far from everything familiar. Sometimes he heard the princess's voice, gentle and distant, speaking words he could not understand, and sometimes he felt eyes watching him. Though no one was in the room, finally the ship slowed. The stars outside grew larger and a great planet appeared. It was covered in silver seas and golden land, with towers that reached from ground to sky. The capital of Lumeria, the heart of the alien empire. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. He had seen cities before, but nothing like this. The towers glowed like fireflies. The sky shimmered with rings of light, and bridges floated between mountains as the ship landed. Daniel saw thousands of aliens waiting below. Their skin shone in colors of blue, silver, and violet. Their eyes brighter than gemstones. They were tall, graceful, with robes that flowed like water. Their voices humming like music, but not all faces showed welcome. Many looked with coldness, with suspicion, with anger. They whispered to each other, pointing at the human who walked down the ramp. Daniel felt the weight of their stares. He was only one man, and yet he carried all of Earth on his shoulders. Soldiers of Lumeria, with armor glowing like molten glass, surrounded him. They marched him through streets filled with wonders, floating gardens, flying creatures, and glowing crystals. Children laughed and pointed, some curious, some afraid, some bold enough to call him strange. Daniel kept his head high, but his heart pounded, every step reminding him he was an outsider. At last they reached the palace, a structure larger than mountains, built of light and stone. Its gates opened like the wings of a giant bird, and music echoed through the halls. Inside were carvings of stars, rivers of light flowing across the floor, and ceilings so high clouds drifted inside them. Daniel walked slowly, his eyes wide, his mind struggling to believe it was real. And then, in the center of the hall, the princess appeared. She was taller than Daniel, her presence powerful yet calm. Her skin glowed like silver, her hair shimmered like strands of light, and her eyes were deep oceans of blue. Every alien in the hall bowed low, their voices whispering her name. Princess Liara. But Daniel stood frozen, his breath caught. He had never seen beauty and strength joined in one form like this. The princess looked at him not as a stranger, but as if she already knew his soul. Daniel, she said, her voice both in the air and in his mind. You have traveled far. You stand now in Lumeria, my world. My home. Her eyes did not leave his, her gaze sharp yet kind. I chose you for a reason, though I cannot tell you yet, but in time you will understand. The hall grew silent, every alien watching, waiting for the human's reply. Daniel bowed awkwardly, his words stumbling. I am only a man. I do not know why you chose me. Whispers spread through the hall. Some laughed, some sneered, some looked with pity, but the princess raised her hand, and silence fell again. Courage does not need crowns. Greatness does not need titles. I saw something in you that others cannot see. Her words struck Daniel like thunder, but he still felt small under the weight of their world. Later he was taken to chambers of gold and crystal, a room prepared for him as if he were royalty. Servants bowed low, offering food that shimmered, clothes woven with threads of light. But behind the walls shadows moved. Not everyone in Lumeria wanted him alive. Powerful families whispered that the princess had insulted their empire by choosing a human. Plots grew in silence, blades sharpened in darkness. Waiting for their moment, Daniel felt it too. A strange tension in the air, as if danger followed him through every corridor. He lay awake at night, staring at the alien stars outside his window. He wondered why fate had brought him here, why a princess of such power and beauty had chosen him. But before he could find answers, a sharp noise echoed outside his chamber. A shadow slipped away, and Daniel knew his life in Lumeria would not be safe. The princess returned to him the next day, her eyes calm but her words sharp. There are those who want you gone. Daniel, they do not understand yet. They fear change. She touched his hand, her touch warm despite her glowing skin. But do not be afraid. I will protect you, for you are more important than even you know. Daniel looked into her eyes, full of secrets, full of unspoken truth. He wanted to ask why. He wanted to demand answers. But before he could speak, the princess turned away, her guards closing around her. Her last words lingered in his mind like fire. You were not chosen by chance. Daniel stood alone in the grand hall of light, his heart heavy, his mind storming. And he realized the real mystery had only begun. The palace of Lumeria was bright on the outside, but inside it carried shadows. Daniel walked through halls of gold and crystal, yet he felt eyes following him everywhere. Guards stood tall, servants bowed low, but in their silence he sensed doubt, suspicion, even hate. Not all of them wanted a human in their royal halls. Not all of them wished to see him near their princess. And somewhere among the whispering voices, a hidden enemy was waiting. At first the threats were small. Too small for others to notice. A tray of food left in his chamber carried a strange smell. A bitter taste he did not touch. A gift of clothing left at his door burned his hands when he tried to wear it. The lights in his chamber flickered at night. As if someone was trying to scare him, Daniel told himself it was his imagination. But deep inside he knew it was real. One evening the princess came to see him, her eyes calm but her voice firm. "Daniel, the empire is not united. Many believe I insulted my people by choosing you." Her gaze turned sharp as she spoke. "Some see you as a threat. Some see you as weak. Some want you gone." Daniel listened in silence, his heart heavy. "Why choose me then? If it brings you danger," he asked. Liara, the princess, looked away, as if hiding something. "Because without you, Daniel, there is no future for us." The words struck him deeply, but she gave no explanation. She left him with more questions than answers, and shadows followed him back to his chamber. That night, as he lay awake, he heard footsteps outside, soft but steady. The door creaked, a figure slipped inside, holding a blade that shimmered like fire. Daniel froze, but before the strike could fall, guards stormed in and the figure fled into the darkness. The attack was fast, silent, and planned. Daniel knew now it was not only whispers, it was war in the shadows. The guards searched the halls, but the assassin vanished like smoke. Rumors spread across the palace. Some whispered that Daniel brought danger with him. Others whispered that his death would end the conflict. The days that followed were filled with tension. Daniel walked through the palace gardens under heavy guard, but still he felt eyes burning into his back. Nobles dressed in silver robes watched him with cold smiles, their words sweet but their meaning sharp. One of them said softly, "Humans are fragile, Daniel. This empire is not a place for your kind," another added. "The princess will soon see her mistake," and their laughter echoed in his ears. Daniel held his anger, but inside he burned. He wanted to shout that he never asked for this. He never wished to be chosen. He wanted to demand answers from the princess, but each time he saw her, her eyes silenced him. She carried secrets, heavy and dangerous, and he knew she would tell him only when the time was right. Until then, he had to survive. One evening, the princess invited him to a council. The great lords of Lumeria sat around a table of shining stone. Their voices deep and cold, they argued about war, about peace, about the marriage that would bind Earth and Lumeria. Some said it would bring unity, others said it would bring ruin. And in the center of the storm, Daniel sat in silence. Every eye fixed on him, the council leader, an elder with silver skin, spoke with thunder in his voice. "Why should a human sit among us? Why should our princess bind her blood to his?" The hall roared with agreement, but the princess raised her hand and silence fell. "Because he is the one I chose, and my choice will not change," she said, her voice steady like steel. But Daniel saw the anger in their eyes, and he knew they would not stop so easily. That night, as he returned to his chamber, he found a mark carved on his door, a symbol he did not understand, sharp lines and glowing edges. The guards turned pale when they saw it. Whispering the word Kareth, Daniel asked what it meant, but no one would answer. Only silence filled the hall. Later he learned the truth. It was the mark of death, a warning from an ancient order of assassins. Sleep left him. Fear walked beside him, but something else grew inside him too. A quiet strength, a courage he had never known. He realized he could not hide behind guards forever. He had to face this world, this danger, this destiny. For the first time, he stopped asking why he was chosen, and started asking how he could prove himself. The princess's words echoed in his mind. "Without you, Daniel, there is no future for us." The palace walls seemed taller, the shadows darker, but Daniel no longer walked with only fear. He walked with purpose, though he did not yet know what it would demand. In the shadows, the enemy sharpened their blades, whispering plans of blood. But in his heart, Daniel began to sharpen something else. His will to survive, his will to stand, his will to face the hidden enemy. The night wind howled through the palace towers. The stars of Lumeria burned bright above, and Daniel, the human groom, stood at the edge of a storm he could not yet see. The hidden enemy waited, and soon their strike would come again, but this time Daniel would not be unprepared. The palace of Lumeria grew more dangerous with every passing day. Daniel felt the weight of unseen eyes, the sting of whispered words, and the sharp threat of hidden blades. He knew someone wanted him gone. He knew enemies waited in the dark, but he still did not know why. Why had the princess chosen him? Why risk her empire? Why invite war into her own halls? The questions haunted him, but the answers remained locked behind her guarded eyes. One night after another failed attempt on his life, the princess summoned Daniel to her private garden. The air glowed with silver flowers, and the water in the fountain shimmered like stars. It was a place no stranger was allowed to enter, yet she brought him there alone. Her eyes were calm, but her voice carried a heavy weight. "Daniel, it is time you knew the truth," she said. Daniel stood still, his heart pounding. He had waited for these words since the day he left Earth. The princess walked slowly among the glowing flowers, her hands brushing against the petals. "My people believe I chose you by whim. They think it is love or madness or weakness," she said. Her eyes turned to his, sharp and deep. "But the truth is older, deeper, written before either of us was born." Daniel listened in silence. His breath caught in his chest. She told him a story, one only the royal family knew. Long ago, before Lumeria became an empire, her mother, the queen, had seen a vision. It came in dreams that burned with fire, dreams of war, dreams of falling stars. In the vision, two worlds clashed, humans and Lumerians, and both faced destruction. But the vision also showed a path, a way to peace, and at the heart of it stood a human man. Daniel's hands trembled, his voice cracked. "You mean me?" The princess nodded slowly. "Yes. My mother believed it would be you, or someone like you. A human who carried courage not in power, but in heart." Daniel shook his head. "But I am no hero, I am no soldier." "Why me?" Liara's voice grew softer. "Because fate does not always choose kings. Sometimes it chooses those who least expect it." Her words pierced him, leaving him both humbled and afraid. She walked closer, her glowing presence warming the night air. "I chose you not only because of the vision, but because I saw it too," she whispered. "When I reached into the stars and searched for the one who could change our future, your name burned brighter than all others." Daniel's chest tightened. The truth felt heavier than any chain. "You mean this is destiny?" he said quietly. "I had no choice." The princess looked at him, her eyes softer now, almost sad. "None of us truly have a choice when destiny calls, Daniel, but what we do with it, that is ours." Her words hung in the air, both comforting and terrifying. Daniel turned away, his mind storming. "So I am here not because of who I am, but because of what you saw." Liara stepped closer. "No, you are here because you are stronger than you believe. You will see it in time." The moment grew heavier when guards rushed into the garden. Their faces pale, assassins had struck again. This time not at Daniel, but at the princess herself. Blades of energy sliced the night. Shadows moved between the glowing flowers. Daniel grabbed a fallen spear from a guard and stood by Liara's side. He had no training, no armor, but he fought with desperation, protecting her from the shadows. The assassins vanished after a fierce struggle, leaving silence and broken stone behind. Daniel's arms shook, his breath ragged, but the princess stood unharmed. Her guards bowed low, whispering that he had saved her life for the first time. The nobles who once doubted him looked at him with something new in their eyes, respect. But in the shadows, the hidden enemy swore vengeance. Their failure only made them more dangerous. Later that night, Daniel sat with the princess again, his hands still trembling. "I am not ready for this," he admitted. "I do not know how to fight wars, or change empires." Liara placed her hand on his, her touch warm and steady. "You are more ready than you think, Daniel. Tonight you showed courage greater than many of my own warriors." Her eyes glowed softly. "And that is why the vision pointed to you, not to kings or generals, but to a man who would protect others without hesitation." Daniel looked into her eyes, and for the first time he saw not just a ruler, not just a princess. He saw a woman who carried heavy burdens, who had placed her trust in him, and deep inside he felt something stir. Not just duty, not just fear, but something more. The line between destiny and choice blurred, and Daniel realized he was no longer only surviving, he was becoming part of something far greater. The night grew quiet. The stars shone above the silver garden, But danger had not passed. The enemy was still waiting, stronger than ever. Daniel now knew the truth of why he was chosen. But with truth came heavier chains if he failed. Both Earth and Lumeria would fall if he succeeded. Both would live. The princess had shared her secret, but the war for their future was only beginning. The palace of Lumeria was no longer safe. Daniel knew it. The princess knew it. Even the guards who marched through the glowing halls knew it. The hidden enemy had grown bold. Their blades reached for the princess. Their shadows tried to take her life. Every corner whispered danger. Every step carried the weight of unseen eyes, and still, the Empire demanded that the wedding must go on. The day of the engagement ceremony arrived. The grand hall filled with lords, nobles, and warriors, thousands gathered in robes of silver and gold, their eyes sharp, their voices murmuring like a storm. The air glowed with music, the walls shimmered with light. But underneath was a silence full of tension. Daniel stood beside Princess Liara, his heart pounding like drums of war. He was dressed in robes of crystal thread, but inside he felt like a soldier walking into battle. The priest of Lumeria raised his hands, his voice echoing. Today begins the binding of two worlds. Today the princess of stars and the groom of earth take the first vow. The crowd shifted uneasily, some with anger, some with fear, some with curiosity, and then, before the words could continue, the hall shook. The sound of explosions ripped through the palace walls. The hidden enemy had struck. They had chosen the moment of unity to sow chaos. Smoke filled the air, shouts rose like thunder, and armored assassins stormed the hall. Their blades glowed red, their faces hidden behind masks of shadow. Guards clashed with them, steel against fire, light against dark. The nobles screamed, some fled, some raised their own weapons. The hall became a battlefield. Daniel grabbed a fallen staff from the ground, his hands shaking but his eyes burning. He had no training, no armor, but he had courage, and that was enough. He stood in front of the princess, striking at any assassin that came near. One blade cut across his arm. Blood flowed, but he did not fall. He pushed forward, fighting not for himself but for her. Liara fought as well, her power blazing like a storm. Her hands glowed with energy. Her voice thundered as she commanded her guards. But even with her strength, the assassins came again and again. Daniel stood close to her, defending her with raw will, his body a shield against the storm. For every strike he blocked, for every wound he took, he felt himself grow stronger. The nobles watched in shock. This human who had been mocked, doubted, and hated, he stood in the fire of battle and did not break. His courage spread like light. Even the guards fought harder seeing him stand. Whispers rose above the clash of weapons. Perhaps the vision is true. Perhaps he is worthy. And for the first time, respect began to replace doubt. The enemy leader stepped forward, taller than the rest, his blade black as night. His voice hissed like poison. This human will not live. This marriage will not happen. He struck with fury. Aiming for Daniel's heart, Daniel raised his staff. The clash echoed like thunder. His arms shook, but he did not fall. The assassin pressed harder, stronger, but Daniel pushed back with all his strength. At the last moment, the princess joined him. Her power surging into his hands, light and fire exploded, throwing the assassin across the hall. The enemy leader fell, but his words lingered. "This is not the end. Your empire will burn." The assassins fled into the shadows. Their plan failed, but their hatred alive, silence returned, broken only by the heavy breaths of those who had fought. Daniel's body ached, blood marked his skin. But he still stood tall beside the princess. Liara turned to him, her eyes glowing with something deeper than duty. "You protected me not because destiny demanded it, but because you chose to," she whispered. Daniel met her gaze, his voice low but steady. "You are not just my destiny, Liara. You are my choice, too." The hall grew silent. Every noble hearing the words, the engagement ceremony continued, though the hall was scarred and broken. The priest raised his voice once more, stronger now, through fire and blood, through danger and fear. "Their bond has already been tested." He looked at the crowd. "If this human fights with such courage for our princess, then perhaps he is not weakness, but strength." Murmurs spread, doubt turned slowly to belief. But in the shadows beyond the palace, the hidden enemy licked their wounds. Their leader's words echoed in dark chambers. "We failed today, but the wedding will not happen. The human will fall." They sharpened their blades again, their hatred burning brighter. The battle was not over, it had only begun. And Daniel knew the next strike would be even greater. That night, as the stars of Lumeria glowed above, Daniel sat with Liara on the palace balcony. Her hand rested on his, her voice soft. "Today you showed them who you are," Daniel shook his head. "I am no warrior, Liara. I am only a man who refused to let you fall." She smiled, her eyes full of light. "And that is why you are stronger than any warrior." In that moment, they both knew their bond was no longer only destiny. It was love. But love in a world of war is never safe. The hidden enemy was still out there, planning, waiting, sharpening their hate, and soon, Daniel would face the greatest test of all. The final wedding of worlds was coming, and with it the last battle for love. The day of the wedding arrived, and the empire of Lumeria stood at the edge of history. For weeks the halls of the palace had echoed with arguments, fear and whispers of rebellion, but now the time for talk was over. The princess would stand beside the human she had chosen, and the entire galaxy watched to see if their union would bring peace or ignite war. The palace shone brighter than ever before, towers glowing like suns, gardens filled with silver fire. Every noble, every warrior, every leader of the empire gathered inside the grand hall. From Earth too, ambassadors and voices of nations had come. Uncertain but curious, the hall was alive with tension, every face waiting for the moment. Would the wedding unite them, or would it break everything apart? Daniel stood in front of the mirror, dressed in robes woven with threads of light. His heart raced, his hands trembled, not because of fear of death, but because of the weight of the moment. He remembered the mechanic he once was, a man who fixed broken machines in a quiet town. Now he was the groom of an alien princess, standing between two worlds. He whispered to himself, "Do not fall, Daniel. Today you cannot fall." The princess entered the hall with grace, her gown shimmering like stars, her crown glowing with fire. Every step she took silenced the crowd. Her presence was like a tide washing over them. She stood beside Daniel, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment the world grew quiet. The priest raised his voice. "Today the blood of stars and the blood of earth will join. Today begins a new path." The crowd shifted uneasily, but before the vow could be spoken, the shadows struck. The hidden enemy had not surrendered. They had been waiting for this moment. From the ceilings, from the walls, from the very floor, assassins appeared, their blades dark with venom. The nobles screamed. The guards drew their weapons. Chaos flooded the hall. But this time Daniel was ready. This time he did not stand in fear. He grabbed a fallen spear, his body burning with purpose, and stood before the princess. The enemy leader appeared again, his voice like thunder. "The wedding will not happen. The empire will not fall to a human." He charged with fury, his blade aiming for Daniel's chest. But Daniel blocked, the clash ringing across the hall. His arms shaking but his will unbroken. The princess joined him, her hands glowing with power. Together they stood against the storm. For the first time, they were not two strangers bound by destiny. They were two souls fighting as one. The battle raged, guards clashed, nobles cowered. Fire and light filled the hall. Daniel fought with everything inside him, each strike fueled not by training but by love. He bled, he staggered, but he did not fall. Beside him Liara shone like a goddess of war, her power lighting the hall. Together they cut through the shadows, step by step, strike by strike. The enemy leader roared in anger, his blade tearing through guards, his strength greater than any. He raised his weapon high, aiming for Liara. But Daniel threw himself forward, his body the shield, his voice shouting with all his strength, "You will not touch her." The blade struck, pain burned through him. But he held firm, refusing to let go, and in that moment, Liara's power burst like a star. Her light consumed the assassin leader, breaking his blade, tearing his shadows apart. The hall shook, the ground cracked. The enemy screamed as he vanished into nothing. Silence fell. The last of the assassins fled into the night, their leader destroyed, their rebellion broken. Daniel fell to his knees, blood on his hands, his vision fading. But Liara caught him, her arms strong, her eyes filled with fire and tears. "You will not leave me, Daniel," she whispered, her power flowing into him, healing his wounds. Her voice carried across the hall. "You see now why I chose him, not because of prophecy, not because of power, but because of love." The nobles lowered their heads. The warriors struck their weapons against the ground. For the first time, the empire saw the truth. Humanity was not weakness. It was strength, and Daniel, the human groom, had proven it with his blood. The priest raised his voice again, stronger now. through fire and through storm. They have already made their vow. Let the bond be sealed. Daniel stood, weak but unbroken, and took Liara's hand. Their voices joined together. We choose each other in this life, in this empire. In this future, the hall erupted. Some in cheers, some in tears, but none could deny the moment. The wedding of worlds was complete. The human and the alien princess bound not by chains of politics, but by love. The empire would never be the same. Earth would never be the same. The shadows of rebellion would return someday. The dangers of war would still exist. But for now there was peace, fragile, precious, and real. And in the center of it stood Daniel and Liara, not just bride and groom, but the bridge between two worlds. The stars above Lumeria burned brighter, as if the galaxy itself witnessed their union. Daniel looked into Liara's eyes and whispered softly, "This is not destiny anymore, this is us," she smiled, her hand tightening around his. "Yes, Daniel, this is us." And so began the story of a human who was chosen, who fought, who loved, and whose love became the light that saved two worlds.